Hello, my name is Chris Fry, and I'm an Android engineer here at Livefront. This is one repo to rule them all, where I'll be talking about the pitfalls of multi-repository Android projects and how you can avoid them with a mono-repo setup. I've spent a long time working in mono-repo setups with large and small teams. These projects weren't perfect by any means, but in the short time I've spent working in a multi-repository project, I've come to know a few pain points that you just don't see in mono-repo projects. Now you might be asking yourself, what is a mono-repo? Simply put, a mono-repo is a software project that exists solely in one repository. Said another way, when a developer opens the project, in Android Studio for instance, they can see all the code and assets required to build that application all in one place. In contrast, a multi-repo project is one where application code exists in two or more repositories. For Android applications, these repositories are compiled together as library dependencies into one binary and typically built out of one main repository. One negative consequence I've noticed with multi-repo projects is a siloing effect. It can be very easy to move your feature into an external repository, and at first glance, it will appear easier to work in. With fewer developers, fewer merge conflicts will occur, updates and builds will be faster with a smaller code base, and with a good demo app setup, you'll even be able to test easier. But eventually, you need to cut a release of your library and then integrate with the main repository. If you haven't been diligent about integration testing, this may be a rude awakening. Your library changes may not be easily visible because they are hidden behind a version bump. Version updates that were easy in your repository may cause conflicts with the main repository, and compile issues may not be detected until integration. Your separate repository essentially becomes a long-living feature branch, which is never good in iterative development. If you had been working in a mono-repo, breaking changes could have been identified immediately instead of taking on tech debt. Speaking of tech debt, another pitfall I've seen with multi-repo setups is delayed maintenance. Now, I'm not perfect at keeping my code up to date, but in a mono-repo, I can find comfort that all the code I need to update is in one location. The project I'm currently working on depends on over 30 external repositories. We recently discovered a crash and couldn't support Android 14 due to receiver registering issues. To resolve these crashes, we need to fix receiver registering in the main repository, and we need to check all 30 external repositories to ensure they are also registering receivers properly. Not only that, but any external repositories that depend on each other need to be updated to point to versions with these fixes. A fix for an issue like this can quickly become a huge time sink if there are many repositories that need to be updated and tested. Another potential risk of multi-repo setups are repositories becoming unmaintained. Whether left to stagnate through company reorganization, attrition, or sheer ignorance, unmaintained repositories can cause major issues down the line in future builds. Eventually, they will need to be updated, and it may be impossible to track down who is responsible for them. A mono-repo setup ensures that handling updates is easier because all your code is in one spot. Even if you've split your application into multiple modules, you'll only need to open one project to resolve any updates. The hardest thing to manage when it comes to multi-repository projects is version conflicts. In an external repository, you are free to specify whatever dependency versions you like, but remember, you're building a library that is being consumed by the main repository. This means that all libraries your application consumes are compiled together, and at that point, Gradle dependency resolution takes over versioning. When multiple versions of a single dependency are declared by different libraries, Gradle resolves up to the newest version. This means another library could cause your code to use a version of a dependency that you were not prepared for. Even worse, you could unknowingly force a version of a dependency into your application that is incompatible with other repositories. In a mono-repo setup, all of these dependency versions can be maintained with a version catalog. This ensures that all modules within the repository use the same version of a shared dependency and never have conflicts. This is not to say mono-repos are perfect. Things can quickly get messy having all your code in one spot with no structure. If an application becomes large enough, you may start to become frustrated with your mono-repo. It may become difficult to find code you're looking for, accidental duplication may start to occur, and those pesky merge conflicts may happen more frequently. One way to combat this, and I've name dropped it a couple times, is to create multiple modules within your application. Splitting your application into multiple modules allows you to have a clear separation of concerns, either by features or teams. You can also utilize things like continuous integration and GitHub code owner rules to further protect your module code. This ensures that you can have a separate place to work while still enjoying all the perks that come with a mono-repo setup. Thank you for watching my talk. I hope this helps convince you to stick with mono-repo Android projects and makes development just a little bit easier.